Hi, and welcome to part 2, which is the second part, and should be a little bit shorter. So this is about arc length and circumference. So remember what circumference is. Circumference is going to be the distance around a circle. So if I were to walk entirely around a circle, that's a circumference. It's kind of like the idea of perimeter, except it's for things that are circles, not for things that are polygons. So the units for these are they're going to be just linear then. In other words, we're not finding area, we're not finding volume, it's not going to be squared or cubed or anything like that. It's just going to be a distance. And a distance is going to be, so many feet or so many miles or so many inches. The way to find the circumference of a circle, we usually use the capital letter C to represent circumference, and there's two ways to do it. One of them is in terms of D, which is diameter of a circle, and one of them is in terms of R, which is the radius of a circle. And which one you use depends on what information you have. So for this example, if I want to find the circumference of this circle, the number that's given to me here, 25, that's the diameter of the circle. It's the entire distance from one side to the other. So I would use this first formula here, which is that the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. In this case, it's going to be pi times 25, so the circumference is going to be 25 pi centimeters. For this one over here on the right, it says find the radius. So I want to find a relationship between the circumference and the radius. So I would use the second formula there. Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. So in this case, I know the circumference is 70. So I can plug that in. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi in order to get the radius by itself. So if I do that, then that fraction actually reduces. Here the 2 pi and the 2 pi cancel out, so I just get the radius on this side. But here 70 over 2, that will reduce. So if I reduce that, I will just get radius is equal to 35 divided by pi. So 35 divided by pi feet. But let me think about that for a second. The circumference is 70 feet. If I were to walk entirely all around this circle, it would be 75 feet. But what if I didn't want to walk entirely around the entire circle? What if I only wanted to walk a semicircle? What would the length of a semicircle be? Most of you guys can probably do this in your head, but the semicircle is going to be half of the circle, so that distance is just going to be half of 70, which is going to be 35 feet. And that's what arc length is about. Arc length is just part of the circumference of a circle. It's when you're not going around the entire circle, you just want to find the length of just part of it. So instead of going entirely all around this entire thing, I just want to find part of the circumference of that. So it's part of the distance. So here we have a ratio again. Remember, think part to the whole. So this part to the entire circumference. And I'm going to set up a proportion again using the measures of the arcs. So again, the ratio of the length of an arc to the circumference is equal to the measure of the arc to 360. In other words, arc length is to circumference as the arc measure is to the circle measure. Now just like before, the circle measure is always going to be 360. So that's the whole. The arc measure is how many degrees the part of the circle it is. The circumference, I know several ways to find that at this point actually. The circumference I can calculate if I know the diameter or the radius, or sometimes they just give me the circumference and I can find it using any of those. So similar to what we did with area, I can find just part of this. So for this first part here, find the length of arc AB. Now, careful, this is not the measure of arc AB. I already know the measure of arc AB. This is a central angle here, so the measure of arc AB is 70 degrees. But I'm asking about length. I'm asking about distance. So I'm asking if you had to walk from here to here, that's the distance I'm asking about. So I can set up a proportion here. The length of that arc, which I've just called x to make things shorter, is to the entire circumference, as this measure here, 70, is to the entire circle, which is 360. So this arc is to the entire circle, as 70 is to 360. So this x, I'm just going to call x. The circumference I can calculate using the radius here. It's going to be 2 times pi times 4 in this case. So I can calculate the circumference that way. And then just like before, I can cross multiply. I can multiply both sides by 8 pi to get the x by itself. So x is just going to be equal to a fraction of that entire circumference. It turns out it's about 4.89 millimeters. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do the other two on your own. If you did the first section, you should be okay with these. I'll be here when you get back. All right, hopefully you went ahead and solved for these. So to find this arc length here, I can set up a proportion, and you should have gotten for your answer 12.22 millimeters. For the other one, I'm trying to find the length of this arc, and hopefully you set up your proportion correctly and you were able to get a length which is 14.66 millimeters. If you're still having trouble, go back and listen to that part of the video again and see if you can fill in each part of the formula on your own. One last example, which is on the following page. Find the measure of arc TUV if the length is 27 feet. So for this one, I've actually told you what the arc length is. This distance from TUV, this distance here, that is 27 feet. I want to find the measure of it. So we're still going to set up our thing the same way. Now, this 6.3 feet over here, that's going to give me the radius of this circle. So that's what I'm going to use when I find the circumference of the entire thing. So the arc length is to the entire circumference, as this measure, whatever it is to 360. So the arc length is to the entire circumference, and again the circumference is going to be 2 pi r. That's going to be equal to this measure, whatever that measure is, to the entire circle, which is 360. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my calculator, the 2 times pi times 6.3 in my calculator, just so I can see what that is approximately. And I'm going to go ahead and substitute in the 27 feet as well. I know the length of the arc is 27 feet. So 27 is to 39.58 as the measure of this arc, whatever it is to the entire circle, which is 360 degrees. I can multiply both sides by 360 in order to get the arc measure by itself. And if I do, I find that the measure of that arc ends up being 245.6 degrees. All right, thanks for watching to the end of the video. You guys should now be good to work on your homework. Hope to see you guys soon.